Welcome back. We had to pause the video previously because of its length, some technical difficulties there with that. So welcome back as we continue our work on the ground floor of this small house unit that we're working on. As we left off, we had completed the fireplace and the stairs, and so they were looking pretty good. And now I wanted to direct our attention back over to the left side of the drawing where the small washroom and the kitchen areas are. And then I want to finish off with some of the elements on the outside of the building as well. So as we, let's focus our attention next then on the washroom. And as we look at the washroom, it's a pretty simple set of elements here. It's not a large or complicated plan. What we have is a small door. I think it's only 24 inches wide, a small sink and base, a water closet, a bathtub, and a set of shelves here for linens and things like that. So we're going to go ahead and draw this. Now, one of the things that I wanted to point out is that you can draw these with a regular circle template and with most of the other elements, and it'll be okay. But for speed and standardization, these templates come in very, very handy. So as we start with them, I'm going to look at the first element here, which is the door. How do we get in? Well, as we looked at the doors provided at the entrance, we're going to apply the same rule of a 2-inch offset for the jamb in the frame. And then we're going to put in a 2-foot door. And we're going to double check that real quick just to make sure. Yes, it's a small door. Usually they can be a little bit bigger than that, but for this small plan, this is quite adequate. So I mark that, and that's where the door opening will be. We can go ahead and take some of the wall piece out of there, and we can connect in the remaining pieces of the wall here. So we'll go ahead and do that. And there's that piece. And we'll get this piece. Again, just emphasizing the 4-inch wall. All right, so we've now got the enclosure pretty well handled. There's a couple little fussy things that we got to put in. So let's start with the biggest item in here, and that's the bathtub. So I'm going to use the template. If you want to measure and provide, like I said, a more composite drawing with rectangles and parts of circles and so on, that's all fine. But I'm going to use the tools that I have to move things along a bit quicker. So the bathtubs are located right here. And there's a form for this one. We're going to use the smaller of the two. And what it does is it gives me the platform for it. So I'm going to go ahead and mark that. And there it is. And the tub little triangle indicates the fittings and faucets necessary. And there it is. All right, so that was done pretty quick. But what you'll notice here is there's a little wing wall there. And so now that we know the extent of where the tub is, we can place that wall. And we're going to put in a 4-inch wall to separate those. So there's, oops, we can get over here. We measured the wrong one. Okay, here we go. So there's 4 inches there. Now, one of the things you're going to observe here when you're doing the work, and this is just a sign of good quality work, is where the walls come together, we don't want one wall sliding by the other. We want them to be homogeneous. So when that happens, I'm going to come back in and I'm going to erase out the intersecting line here so that I get a nice, clean, homogeneous wall element. So even though there's a little bit of graphite remaining there, the idea is that this wall is continuous throughout with no breaks. Okay, so as you can see here, I've tried very hard not to put those brakes in, and unfortunately I had to come back and erase that little piece to get that out of there. Since it's a rough, no big deal. I can just fix it up, and when I do my final, it'll be ready to go. All right, so it looks like we have some shelving. I'm going to make that shelving like similar to the other shelving or the other cabinetry at 2 feet deep. And I'm just going to put a horizontal line across there, and there's that piece. So now we have the tub, the sheet, the shelving. We need to put the water closet and the sink in. So generally speaking, you kind of want to be thoughtful about where the water closet is. I won't get into particulars. If you look around your own washrooms, there's a certain spacing of things. The toilet paper dispenser, a towel rack, whatever is being placed around it, you should be thoughtful of that as you're doing your own work. So now I'm looking at this, and it shows that the edge of the water closet tank is about 6 inches off the wall. So I'm going to come over here, I'm going to mark that, and then I'm going to place my water closet edge with the template, and I don't want to necessarily put it right against the wall. It should be off just a little bit, unless it's a wall-hung toilet. And in this particular case, there's that. Okay, done. All right, so you can do that with a circle template and a rectangle, and that'll work okay. Next, we want to look at is a sink, and the sink I'm going to measure, and it looks like it's got a, let me double check here. It has just over, it looks like 2'4" for its total width, and it is placed 2'4" from the inside wall. So I'm going to go 2'4" to here, and then another 2'4" to here, and that comes in pretty close to the water closet, and that's about where it should be. Okay, now the depth of it, we can either use the standard, which is listed here. Generally speaking, they're a little bit smaller than a kitchen sink because they are a lav fixture, and so they're usually like 20 to 22. So there we go, and I'm going to go ahead and put in my sink in the middle, and I'm done. Okay, so the only thing missing now is the door. Let's talk about doors for a minute. As you saw in the lecture, we talk about the doors and how they're represented, and there's a variety of types of ways of showing them. But generally speaking, the standard is to show the door in a 90% or I'm sorry, 90-degree open position. So I'm going to go ahead and do the entrance door and the back door and the door at the bathroom or the lavatory. And to do that, what we need to do is we need to be thoughtful of the fact that the door has we're not only indicating the door, but we're indicating the swing that goes with the door. And so we need a circle template to do those effectively. And when we do those, it's important to kind of keep them at the correct size and the correct scale. So the thing I want you to observe also is that as we go back to our little plan, these doors, they're not a single line. They have a thickness. As we talked about in the bifold door, they're about anywhere between 1.5 inches to 1.75 inches. So if you want to show them just a shade thinner than 2 inches, you'll be fine. Graphically speaking, that's acceptable. But they are not a single line. If you show them as a single line, you're making an error, and because that's not how they're represented. So I just wanted to make sure that you knew that. All right, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to work on this big entrance door. The easiest way to find how far the door extends is to place the a 45-degree angle on the inside jamb and lightly extend a line up until it meets the intersection line of the door. So the door meets at the corner. If you look really closely at the drawing, you'll see that it's not over the wall and it's not floating out here. It is connected ever so tightly at a corner condition at the jamb. So I'm going to start at the corner of the jamb, and I'm going to extend the the door up until it gets to that 45-degree swing area. Okay, that 45-degree will give us the correct distance out. And now I'm going to come in and say, well, how thick is it? It's going to be just under 2. And so I've marked that. Again, from the corner, now I'm going to be over to the right side a bit so they get that shown correctly. That's just under 2 inches. There. So there's my door. Now, one of the other things I wanted to point out, if you notice on the comparable or the reference plan, there's a single line here. That's because that line demarks the edge of the house. Once you pass that point, you're outside the boundaries of the house. Even though there's a porch element here, you've left the inside of the bubble. You've left the inside of the house. And same thing is true here. Inside, it doesn't happen like that. But when you have a boundary, like an inside-outside boundary, you need to demark that with a line. So I've already provided that here, and I've provided it up here already. So my door now extends from this corner and swings up. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to swing an arc. Let's see if we get the right one here. We want this one right here. That one works good. Okay, so now it doesn't have to be a crazy heavy line, but you see that represents the swing of the door. Why is that important? Well, as you know, a door doesn't just flip open. It has a radius path. It's pivoting around its hinges. The reason we show that door in that position like that is that means we're not going to put anything that would encumber the door swing in and around that. So that's a clear area. Stay away from that. That's where the door functionally has to swing. So that's why we do that. So let's do the same thing up at the top. The door is opposite up here than it is down here. So we're going to go to the opposite corner. We're going to put in our 45 angle measurement. Okay. And we're going to start at that same inside corner where the hinge is. And we're going to shoot a line down to represent the door length internal. And we're going to make it just under 2 inches again. Try to be consistent as we can. And there we go. So there's our door on the upper side. And we're going to provide that same door swing right here. There it is. Now, you may not have the precise door swing. You can use a compass if you want. It's a little fussy, but that would be up to you. That's the little device. It's like a triangle that has a point in and a pencil lead, and so you swing the arcs around that. And you would swing that around that point there, and it would swing a circle. That's fine. You can do that. Circle templates are just very easy. And so I have these in a whole variety of sizes. So just be thoughtful of how big it needs to be. Don't cheat. Don't use a big one and do something that is like that. That, if you look at it closely, you want a full 90-degree swing. You want a nice quarter turn radius with the circle template. So be thoughtful of that. Don't cheat it. It'll look bad. I don't want you to have a bad looking drawing. Okay, same thing for the door into the washroom. That door is right here, and it has to go in. We're going to use the same trick. Shoot a 45, line it up, give ourselves that 2 inches. I'm pretty good at eyeballing by now, so I know what that looks like. Put that in. And the arc on this one's going to be smaller. There it is. Okay, 3 doors. That's how they're shown. So hopefully you've got that now. All right, so we've got the bathroom done. Let's do the kitchen. So the kitchen is, we've already done the pantry. We've already done the base cabinets. We've got to do the range and the refrigerator. We'll get to that in a minute. And we have a dishwasher, and we have a sink, and we have a little window, greenhouse window where you put plants and things like that, growy things. Okay, so let's start with the big cabinet here. All right. The first thing we need to know is, generally speaking, they like to put those sinks where they are kind of centered in a functional center place. So what that means is that you're not going over here and you're not crowded over here. You kind of want it straight in from where that is. So if I was to clear that space and then measure it, it would probably give me a pretty precise placement of that sink element. Now, you can measure it and do all that, or you can use the template. So by using the template, I can speed up that process a fair amount. Make sure I get the right one here. Okay, so here it is, and there's my center. Oops, I got to flip it around. There it is. Okay, and I'm putting it in, and we should be good with that guy. Okay, there it is. I didn't have to do a bunch of measuring because the template showed me where to place it. Okay. Yeah, you can get into more details. You can see that there's kind of a drain indicated. You could do that if you want. I don't think that's as necessary. It's just basically showing us where the drain and how it drains to, a certain point. I don't have the small template for a circle. I mean, I do over there. I'm not going to mess with that now. This is a block out. That's fine. So based on that, we now have a sense of where that window wants to be. And we're going to take a look at its total size. So as we look at the size of the window, it's 4 feet out to out. That's not inside dimension, it's out to out. So since I'm centered on the sink, I really need to be 2 feet on one side and 2 feet on the other, and I should be very good to go. 2 feet on this side, 2 feet on this side. Now, these window systems, or these little things, they don't stick out much. They're about a foot out away from the wall. So I'm going to mark that. So if you have a question on that, you can scale it and you'll be fine. Double check that. Nope, wrong line. Okay, there we go. Okay, so the other thing is it has thickness, just like the walls and just like the doors. This little window system has about a 3-inch thickness, and so we're going to use that. So I'm going ahead and applying that thickness so that it has makes some sense, and it looks like it flushes out. So that means it's even with that window opening right there. Get that squared away. Fix up this wall. Got a little messy here. Okay, so what we're seeing is we're seeing the countertop. We're seeing right next to it a pantry that kind of encroaches a little bit, but not too much. Still got space to work over here for whatever reasons. We're centered on the sink, centered on the window, greenhouse window, and so now we need to think about the cabinetry. The base cabinetry is already in, and we've drawn that. Now all we have to do is put in the overheads. Well, if you think about your overhead cabinetry, it's lower. Take a look at what you have at home. It'll be nothing new under the sun. This stuff should be pretty easy to look at and identify what it's doing. So I'm going to make it flush out with the end. It means it's going to line up with the end of the lower cabinet below it. It's only going to come out a foot. But at that point, it's going to stop at the edge of that window opening for the greenhouse window. We don't want that upper cabinet to go in front of that. That would look bad. So as a result, we're going to extend it out. How far? Overhead's about a foot. Some can be custom and a little bit more, but for this exercise, we're going to say 1 foot is fine. Now I drew a very light line here, and the reason is, when we talked about lines a couple weeks back, we said lines that we don't see, lines that are above our head and below us, are dashed. Same thing as what's going to happen out here, but as a result, that means overhead cabinets are above our line of view, so they're going to be dashed. So if I want to do it right, I kind of come in and add an additional parallel line inside it just to make it feel a little bit more appropriate. So I'm dashing that line in. Those are my overhead cabinets. Okay, there they are. They start here, they end here, they go against the wall. So that's almost done. Last thing we need to do, we've got a dishwasher. So I'm going to measure the dishwasher. I already know what it is, but you should measure it. The reason is, the more you measure, the more you'll start to know these standards. By the way, 2 foot by 2 foot, standard dishwasher. Where does it go? Let's look at the plan. It looks like it kind of lines up with the opening right here. And I'm going to say it does, just because it seems like it's an easy way to reference it. So I'm going to measure it over 2 feet. Now, in this example, you see it extend out just a hair. It's dashed. So we'll do that here. Most dishwashers pretty much disappear underneath the countertop, but I'm going to try to indicate that it's there with just a little hint of a line that's popping out. And then underneath, we'll have a couple extra lines that say where it goes. Okay, there it is. Now, on some of this stuff, you can use the abbreviations DW or REF for refrigerator. It's fine. Just keep them modest and keep them good printing, okay? None of this stuff, please. Okay, now, so that's done. Now we just have to do the other side of the kitchen, which is a refrigerator, which is over here. We're just going to measure it. By the way, some of these appliances vary just a bit. Dishwashers not so much, but refrigerators can be rather large. So we're going to make this one only 24 deep. Sometimes they're as deep as 30, 32. Sometimes if you get custom ones, they fit right into the cabinetry, but 2 foot is what we're going to use on this. And how wide is it going to be? Well, we're going to measure it, and the width of this thing is going to be 2'6". Okay, so 30 inches or 2'6" in width. And that's going to give me just a little bit of breathing room for ventilation. There's 1 foot, 2 foot, and 6. Goes to here. So I'm going to make that light for now. And the depth, we already said was going to be 2. We'll just double check. There's 2 right there. Now, sometimes refrigerators pop out just a little bit from the wall so that the door is free to open all the way. This is schematic design. We're not going to get too hung up on that. If we were doing technical drawings, I would talk about it more. Same thing over here. I'm going to measure the oven, and then what's left over will be the sink. So, or the cabinet base. So that's another 30 inches. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to go 2 foot plus 6. And it's going to line up. It looks like it fleshes out pretty readily. Nope. Nope, pops up. Okay, so it's going to come out just a hair. Okay, so oven and range, refrigerator. So you can finish them off and make them kind of look what's provided there. The one thing I do want you to observe is that there's some dashed lines here. And that means that there's an overhead set of cabinets. Those cabinets go over the countertop and over the sink. Over the fridge. So let's get my 2 foot for my base cabinet again here. Okay, so, all right, so here's what I've got. I've got the oven, I've got the refrigerator, and I've got a small cabinet right here. Now there's a little gap there. It's okay if you want to put it in or not. I'm not going to grade it either way, but typically refrigerators don't actually attach to a wall. There's some breathing room for the chilling unit to move air around. Otherwise, it overheats. So so I left mine a little bit off there. When I get done with my final, I'll probably show it more balanced, kind of like I've got there. So there's my refrigerator, there's my oven. That room is pretty much done for the plan. I don't see anything else on there. There's some circles for the eyes, but I'll let you work that out. Okay, so now we're getting closer to the end here. I'm going to go ahead and do the solarium. That's a big item to put in. So let's first start by figuring out how far over it is. So I'm going to measure that, and 12 inches. So from the corner, from the very corner, I'm going to come over 12 inches, and that's going to give me the start of the solarium. I'm going to pull that out and just give myself a line there. I'm going to measure the whole length, and it looks like it's 8'6". So come over here, put it on the 6, and then I'm going to count over 8. So it goes to right there. Okay, so that's the solarium. That's going to be, there's going to be a break in my wall right there because the seat extends into this open space. So I'm going to go ahead and take some of this out. I don't want it all to come out, but it will, yeah, it'll come all out when you do your final. Okay, so now how deep is this thing? I'm going to measure it, and it looks like it's 2'3". I'm going to say 2'3", kind of an odd size, but we'll still put it in there. There's 3, and there's 2, and there we go. Now, this window system is going to be a little bit thinner than an exterior wall, and not as thick even as an interior wall. So I'm going to say try to keep it thin. Yeah, you could, if it gets to be 4, it's okay. If it's hard to see, that's okay. So I'm going to try to keep it just a hair under that and see if I can get the control that I need to do it. And so I'm adding in the thickness, just like the walls, just like the door. Everything in this plan view has a thickness. So we're going to provide that thickness. There's that one. Now, there's that one and that one. Now what you're going to notice here is there's divisions across here. So let's take a look at what those divisions look like. There's some odd number, wouldn't you know it? Okay, so I'm going to take the total inside dimension, and it looks like it's 8 feet. You could break out the calculator, and 96, is that right? Yeah, 96 divided by 3 is going to be like 32 inches or something like that. So you could measure it, and that would give you 3 equal divisions. Or you could measure it and just say, look, I'm going to measure every window and do it that way. I'm going to go ahead and place these in at the 32 inches. So there's 1, 2, and there's 2. And then I'm going to come over here and go 1, 2, and 32. Okay, so we could probably measure these in a bit, but I think we're pretty dang close. Okay, so there's our 3 divided elements. I would just measure them and divide them for purposes of keeping them kind of similar. I would use whatever, if your thickness is 4, make a 4-inch post. That's right there, and right there, and right there, and right there. Give yourself 4 of those. So we've already got this one. It seemed pretty easy. So I'm going to kind of tighten that one up. Do the next one. Okay. All right, so we're getting this guy done. Now, as we do these, we're going to have to make them a certain thickness. So I'm going to just make them 2 inches on this side and 2 inches on the other side of that center point that I made. I found it divided by 3. That gave me a center point. And then I'm adding 2 inches on one side and 2 inches on the other to get a nice 3 or 4 inch thickness there. Okay, so here's our wall. Here's the break in the wall. Here's the unit. And here, unfortunately, you're not seeing that one piece because of my camera stuff. I can't change that right now. But if you follow this element, you'll see it pretty clearly. Okay? Again, coming off here, this is just extending out whatever dimension that is. You're going to measure it, and it should be fine. Whatever this one is, this one is, this one is, this one's all the same. Okay, so please keep that in mind. Consistency counts. All right, so now we have gotten the unit in, but we haven't put the glazing in. The glazing is another word for glass. So we're going to tighten this up, make it a little bit darker. Then we're going to put in the glazing. Now, the glazing can be a little bit heavier line than the frame because the frame's really not a building. I mean, it's a building component, but it's not necessarily a structural component. So line weights kind of come in. Make sure you line them up and keep it on a kind of a good lineup. All right, so there's that one. Now, I'm checking again. We got a little tiny 2-inch offset here and an offset here. And that will permit me to finish this piece and this piece. Okay, that is it. Now, are we done? We have to put in this element here, this kind of built-in daybed that occurs, and same thing over here. So this offset matches this offset, and this offset are similar. Oh, by the way, they line up with the overhead of the of that dashed line. So I can extend that over, and that dimension should be very similar to that one. The reason that's important, that seems to be the offset there. How thick is that? That's 2 feet. That's 2 feet, and that's, how far off is that? I'm going to say it's 8 inches. So come over here, go 8 inches, bring it across. So 8 inches off this dimension, 8 inches off this dimension, aligned with this. Now, and we said this was 2 feet. We're almost done. It's getting there. Okay, so that's that. I lined up this offset or this jog with that outside dashed line, and so that this part and this part would be symmetric and everything works nicely there. Now, there's some dashed lines. I'm not going to do those. I'll let you do those. Okay, just be consistent. Remember, line quality counts. I'm going to work on the porch. I'm going to do one, and then I'm going to let you do the other one. So I'm going to do the one down here. They're exactly the same, except opposite hands. So you're just going to provide that at that point. All right, so the first thing we're going to observe is that this line here tends to serve as an edge line here, and the door needs to be centered on the porch. It'd be weird if you walked out and the porch was on one side or on the other. You just don't want that. So you got to line them up. So we're going to use this as an alignment method, and then we're going to say that the door is 3 foot. We already know that. And we're going to say that the landing or the porch wall or floor is 4 foot. So I've measured 4 feet here, and it aligns with this, so that all works. And it's about 4 feet deep. So far, so good. So we found the edge of it by lining up with the dashed lines and the alignment of the posts. So we come along the outside, and we take it to the outside here, and that becomes that edge. Now, we could measure, because we measured this 4 by 4, but using this, I can get that same dimension out here by shooting a 45 degree. Now you can measure it too, but this is just one of those shortcuts that I like, and it works well. Okay, so there we go. There's the path, or there's our landing of the porch. We have stairs that need to go in. So we're going to block those out real quick. Again, 7-Eleven. How many of them are there? Risers, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're going to put those in. And we're just going to use the 11-inch for the time being. And you'll see how that works. You can do this pretty easily on the other side. It's exactly the same, it's just in the opposite direction. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, done. So the stairs are the same width as the porch. So I'm just going to project the line down. I'm going to shoot the lines across for the stairs. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, and the last one was 5 is up there. There we go. All right, now I didn't do those very heavily. You can kind of see them. You didn't see the last one, but you can get the drift. So when you do that, when you just project them down, then the thing you have to be thoughtful of is there's a couple things going on here. The porch has a cover over it. There's a 4x4, a 4x4 at each of those corners. Then there's railings. We don't want people falling off the porch. So we put some railings in, some hand railings in, and we put some guard railings in. So the hand railings, let's first start with the 4x4. So we know that these are 4x4, so we can project almost straight down from here, and that should work. This side's going to take a measurement, so we're going to do that. Okay. All right, so that one's in. Now, again, well, I'll measure this one just to make sure. Okay, there's 4, another 4. I don't have to do it twice, just once. There's that one, and that one, this one, and this one. Now, according to the railings don't necessarily sit on the outside. They sit kind of in the middle of the post. So that 2-inch exercise is going to go from the post back to the wall for both of those. There it goes. Okay, probably should do that a little slower, a little more careful, but I think you get the drift. There it is. That's a cleaner way of doing that. Okay, so now we want to extend those down to the bottom of the stairs so that we have our stair railings provided. Okay, now you can hard line in your stairs because they're kind of visually interrupted by the handrail. Okay. By the way, there's also a handrail up here. I added that in. You should take a look at that and make sure that's provided in your final drawing, because that is a correct thing to do. All right. Last issue, and we're done. Okay, so that porch element, I could come in and put a dashed line over to show that there's something overhead, but you'll see in the next drawing how we do the rest of this. We talked about the windows. I'll put in just these, but you can do the rest. Okay, so starting at the corner, I like to start on the outside, and it looks like we're 1'4". So come over 1'4". 1'4". There it is. Then how big are they? They're 3 foot each, and there's a 6-inch space between. So there's 3, and a 6-inch space between, and another 3. And we got a nice jam space for the door. So I'm just dividing these out. Okay. We'll put the one on this side by measuring from that corner. So how far is it from there? It is, from this corner, It is 3 feet. Measure over 3 feet. And it's a 3-foot window. Yep. Mark the 3 foot. There's that. And there's that. Just like before. I'm going to double check that. That didn't come out right. Nope. In my speed, I sometimes make errors. So, trying to be a little too fast here. Okay, so that's good. I got that remeasured and redrawn, and there it is. Now, find the center line of the wall. That's where the glazing wants to be, and give yourself a decently heavy line across there. And I kind of extended that a little far, but that's okay. All right, now, clean that up a bit. Okay, so you see how the windows went in. Pretty straightforward. You're going to take this and you're going to put it up there. And that's pretty straightforward. There's a window here, and I believe there's a window right here that need to be put in. I'll let you do those. I'm going to go ahead and close this portion of the video, and we're going to come back and do the second floor. And I want to talk about how the easiest way to do that is. So we'll see you in a couple minutes. Until then, so long, and we'll see you soon. Thanks.